Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Tim Matheson. Tim Matheson is an American actor, director, and producer, perhaps best known for his portrayal of the smooth-talking Eric Otter Stratton in the 1978 comedy National Lampoon's Animal House, but has had a variety of other well-known roles before and since, including critical accolades for his playing Vice President John Hoynes on the television series The West Wing 1999, which garnered him 2 Primetime Emmy nominations for Best Guest Star in a Drama Series. From 2011 to 2015, Matheson starred as Dr. Brick Breland in the CW series Heart of Dixie, opposite Rachel Bilson. He has and continues to direct several episodes each season throughout the series, not limited to Heart of Dixie. Matheson has made a career of directing an array of episodic projects on some of television's most prominent shows, The Last Ship, Burn Notice, Criminal Minds, Without a Trace, Cold Case, Numbers, Drop Dead Diva, Boots, Eureka, and White Collar, as well as pilots for Fox's The Good Guys, and the USA Network successful original series Over Affairs. Beginning his career at the age of 13, Matheson appeared in Robert Young's CBS nostalgia comedy series Window on Main Street, 1961 to 1962. In 1964, he provided the voice of the lead character in the cartoon program Johnny Quest, as well as the voice of Jace in the original animated series Ghost 1966. Additionally, he played the role of the oldest son, Ike Beardsley, in the film Yours, Mine, and Ours in 1968, which starred Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda. 1969, Matheson joined the cast of NBC's Western series The Virginian in its 8th season as Jim Horn. During the final season of the television Western Bonanza 1959, in 1972-1973, Matheson played Griff King, a parolee who tries to reform his life as a worker at the Ponderosa Ranch under Ben Cartwright's watch. Following that, he portrayed young motorcycle cop Phil Sweet in the 1973 film Magnum Force. In the fall of 1970s, Matheson was seen opposite Kurt Russell in the NBC series The Quest, the story of 2 young men in the American West seeking the whereabouts of their sister, a captive of the Cheyenne. In 1978, co-starred in the acclaimed National Lampoon's Animal House, opposite John Belushi. The following year, he appeared along Belushi again in Steven Spielberg's 1941. Matheson and Catherine Hicks played Rick Tucker and Amanda Tucker, who operate a detective agency in Laurel Canyon in CBS Tucker's Witch 1982, which aired during the 1982 to 1983 season. He then appeared in the 1983 To Be or Not to Be, starring Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft, and went on to star in the 1984 comedy Up the Creek and 1985's Fletch. Matheson, along with business partner Dan Grodnick, bought National Lampoon in 1989. When the magazine was facing financial decline, they took the stock from $2 to over $6 and sold it in 1991. In 1996, Matheson took on the role of a con man who claims to be Carol Brady's thought-to-be-dead husband in a very Brady sequel. Matheson was seen opposite Ryan Reynolds in the feature comedy Van Wilder in 2002, playing the father of the title character who was inspired by his own National Lampoon Animal House character as a nod to the original film. Tim was born Timothy Lewis Matheson in Glendale, California, a suburb of Los Angeles, the son of Sally and Clifford Matheson, a training pilot. Damn glad to meet you. My 7 decades in the Hollywood trenches by Tim Matheson. Enjoy a great reading experience when you buy the Kindle edition of this book. Learn more about Great on Kindle, available in select categories categories. I found myself underlining and highlighting things to remember for my own career. It's also entertaining, a great combination of Tim's words. They encourage you to keep dreaming. Reba McEntire. Tim was a cast, crew, and audience favorite on The West Wing. He's been at the center of some of America's most iconic film and television. Damn Glad to Meet You is a fascinating, hilarious, and often very moving inside look at his extraordinary career. Aaron Sorkin, a damn good fun and revealing memoir from the acclaimed Hollywood actor Tim Matheson. For the past 7 decades, Tim has been an on-screen favorite in Hollywood. In his debut memoir, Tim takes fans beyond the scenes of his illustrious career and reveals what it was like to learn from and work alongside the greats, including Lucille Ball, Dick Van Dyke, Steven Spielberg, and Aaron Sorkin. Tim also talks about how he transitioned from acting to directing the role in The West Wing that nabbed him 2 Emmy nominations, and so much more. This is an amazing book, and we talk about this in the interview today, and it was like being a kid again, really. All of the things in the book just remind me of my childhood. All the iconic things that I have ever loved about television, Tim has been a part of. So I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hi, Tim. I'm excited I'm damn glad to meet you.
My pleasure. Damn glad to meet you.
Yeah. I'm excited for the audience to hear all of your wonderful stories. I've been catching up in your book, and I got to tell you, I love it. It's such a good read. It takes me back
Oh,
to the era of time when, Leave It to Beaver was on, and just so many wonderful memories of my childhood.
oh.
And I love your book so far. What led you to write the book?
It started out, I like the making of kind of books and, the making of The Wizard of Oz or and I wanted to do the making of Animal House, and the publishers loved that idea. And they said, but you got to tell more about how you started as an actor, and you've got stories, tell more. So I just expanded it to include the lessons and the friendships, the lessons I learned from Lucille Ball and Hank Fonda and Clint Eastwood, Kurt Russell, and Mel Brooks. Was fortunate enough to work with all these greats, and I just wanted to pass that on. And I think the biggest lesson I got was, it's a tough business. Life is tough in any business. You're gonna get knocked down. So how are you gonna get back up and keep going? That's the trick.
And I loved all the lessons. I felt like life lessons in the book. I like when you're talking about the lost year, like with your mom, where she had, her lost year. I think we all could identify with
Yeah,
having a year
yeah.
like that. And she got back up on the horse and she was basically working around the clock.
Oh my gosh.
Tell us a little bit about what that taught you and how you implemented that real life lesson into your own acting and your life.
Well, you know what? It just showed me the resilience and the fortitude that my mom and my grandmother both had, and that's what it takes, if you have a bad time and you go off the rails a little bit. And she, got into a financial hole, and it was one of the reasons I got into acting or tried to. I mean, was to be able to help her out and help the family out, and get us a car. And I remember one of the first things I bought was a color TV. That was a big deal, you know and but she taught me a lot about fortitude and being there for other people. And she was responsible for us 2 kids, so she had a hard road, but she was great, and she always had a good sense of humor about it.
Well, when you were talking about the TV, I just remembered my brother and I selling YMCA Thin Mints, and like I had door to door, and we got this black and white television, and we would sit and watch, and like it was, the thing.
Yeah.
And so I just so related to you being so young and buying a TV set for your family. I mean, it was $500, which you in the book say it would be 5,000 today.
Oh yeah. It was, and it was this monstrous thing in the living room, and you didn't like it, nobody picked it up. I mean, they'd come out and they'd work on it in the house if a tube went out or something. And it was such a treat. Because sitting there in our little apartment watching it in color, that was like unheard of. And it also inspired me to want, to be in more shows and to do more acting and learn, from I remember watching Richard Boone and his anthology series and all those people and Steve McQueen and Richard Boone, and they were inspirations to me.
And you were crawling into the back of that TV set. We had a TV just like that. We did the same thing. And it just made you so human to me. And
Oh,
sometimes I think people put Hollywood stars on a level here and they forget to realize that they all have stories and they're real people. And you talk about an incident in the book where you're backstage, you're like at Desilu, you snuck into Desilu and studios. I mean, I love Lucy. I watched every episode. And here you finally get this role and you're backstage and you find out everything's smoke and mirrors. Tell us how that experience kind of made a trajectory in your life.
well, I think it was the first job I did. I remember being on the set. It was Robert Young, who had just done Father Knows Best, an old famous TV show, and he was doing a show called Window on Main Street. And I had auditioned for the lead, but since I hadn't done anything, they said, "Well, no, no, we'll try you out in a smaller part." And I like to call myself, I was the third kid through the door. I wasn't the star of the show or the star's best friend. I was the other guy, the third kid. And I had a couple of lines, and I got on the stage, and it was in this beautiful hotel room set, and it was so ornate, and it was so different than anything I'd ever been in. It was like very rich, and gosh, it was so gorgeous. Had this huge fireplace, and I just went up when no one was looking, and it was marble, and I put my hand up on it and touched it, and I just wanted to feel the marble, and it wasn't marble, it was contact paper on plywood. And I realized it's all fake. It's all just pretend. And I normally, I think I would have shocked most people or kind of disappointed others, but I was like, that's great. That is just great. It's really the actors and the writing, and this background can be just, fake, and we just have to pretend it's real, and everyone else will believe that it's real.
And it was a that is so optimistic too, the way you flipped it. I know we all have that, you know, Santa isn't real moment, where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, my parents left money under my pillow for the tooth fairy.
Yes. Yes, we all had our fairy tales, right?
Yeah, but you really took that and turned it into kind of a way to try on other characters because in the book you talk about that your parents lived through the depression, like and there was fighting in the household before they split, and you found this world that you could escape to. uh Talk to that a little
Well, I
bit.
I think like a lot of kids, I mean, I don't think I was any different than anybody who's gone through a breakup in their family. It's tough on the kids, and I think I blamed myself very, subconsciously, that it was my
Yeah.
fault, that if I'd have been a better kid, and it was so it was hard for me. And then I'd sneak, or not sneak, but I'd go to the movies on the Saturday matinees, the kid shows, and then I would stay for the next 4 or 5 hours and watch the adult movies, the main shows. And I would watch and I'd go back the next day and watch them. And I felt safe there, and comfortable because they had a happy ending. The scenes were always the same scene that I remembered from yesterday or earlier in the day. And there was kind of a comfort for me to have that kind of solidity in my life when at home I didn't have any of that. So I just always felt it would be, I want to be there. I want to get in there. I want to be in that safe space. And I must say, being on a set has always been a comfort zone for me. And there's just all these wonderful people around doing their jobs and taking care of you and trying to make you look and be the best that you can be in your character and your part. And that always inspired me to bring more to my work just to match the what they were doing. So it was a perfect fit. I was one of the lucky ones who always knew I wanted to be an actor, and I'm lucky enough still to be an actor.
Hey, I love the humbleness, but you definitely arrived. You do a great job,
Thank you.
and I'm excited to be talking to you. I just got to tell you, you're making me feel like a kid again, only because you are the voice of Johnny Quest.
Yay!
My brother would die right now knowing I am talking to the voice, Johnny Quest, because we would watch that when we were kids.
Oh,
Couldn't
sure.
wait for every episode. What was that like getting that role? And you were so young at the time.
I was 16, I think, and it was the first job I could ever drive to myself. And it was I had sort of outgrown being a kid actor. I was no longer some little kid that could be on Leave It to Beaver. I'd grown up in height and I was a teenager. And so I didn't really have, and I didn't know what that meant in terms of acting. So I wasn't getting a lot of acting parts. So I had auditioned for Joe Barbera for this voice in some show that he was making. Never heard back. 3 months go by, and then I got a call and said, "Hey, we're going to make this show. We want you to be Johnny Quest." And I said, all right. And it was such a great adventure. It was the first dramatic adventure show for a kid. It wasn't like the Flintstones or the Jetsons, which were comedies. And it was amazing. And the actors I got to work with, Mel Blanc and Don Messick and June Foray and Janet Waldo, I mean, they were the best of the best. And so I learned a lot from them on how to do cartoon voice work. And so for about 4 or 5 years, that was what I did as I grew up and then was a younger leading man.
I found that so interesting that you're talking in the book about when you realized that you had to just convince the adults that you weren't going to screw up and the acting was secondary. And I thought, that's kind of an analogy for life, to get the job,
Yes.
you got to have people trust you that you're going to deliver, what they're looking for you to deliver. And you were picking that up pretty early on, I find.
It's true, Linda. I mean, what I think it applies to every job and every business and career that people are into. There's two parts of it. There's your front porch, that's your confidence and your convincing them and your personality and your personability. And you have to get along with other people. And if you don't have a good attitude and are positive, I think people don't want to be around you. And then they just, that maybe they don't believe you can do it. So that was a lesson I learned early on. I would go in and tell the director, "Oh yeah, yeah, I got this. Don't worry about a thing." And it would, and I didn't have a great idea what I was doing either. I mean, that's why I studied so much when I wasn't working because I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's kind of that same principle of the fake it till you make it a little bit. But I
Right.
think the most important part is getting your foot in the door. If your foot's not in the door, it doesn't matter how much you practice.
No, and I did anything and everything. I did little theater. I did commercials. It didn't matter to me. It was a one line part, a day part. I didn't care because each day was an experience, a lesson, somebody I'd work with. I'd learn, something from them. And, oh, it was great. It was great to grow up in this business.
I mean, I just love hearing of all the legends. What are some of the most favorite like people, and play, like legends that you've worked with?
Well, I think number one primarily was Lucille Ball, who was the golden rule. I mean, the gold standard of comedy and physical comedy. And I learned so many things from her. And she was tough. I mean, she demanded the best work that you could do on the set every take, and it taught me, here she started in vaudeville, and so she, where you do 6 8 shows a day, and it's tough, and you have to bring it every performance. And so I learned, not unlike my mother, it was, when things are tough, you just buckle down and do it. And that was Lucy too, and I got to work with Jackie Gleason, and he was the same way. He was just so multifaceted, and he could do comedy and drama, and a
He was
wonderful
pretty
guy.
funny.
Yeah, he was great.
And there's so many great legends. And I just so related to Lucy and the Chocolate Factory when I did like a TV segment because I had checked my camera. This was like, you know, I had checked it, the lighting, we had the light check, the camera check, the whole thing. It was basically a cooking segment, and that's what I like to do. And so here I am. I have all this, and it goes bad. It's not charged up. I have to get my like, it was just like I'm like, oh gosh. And I felt like I was going through with the cooking and everything, like just like the chocolate factory where she's stuffing the chocolate down her mouth.
Oh
But I
my God.
remember thinking, next time I do this, I'm gonna nail it. And that's the secret, right? You're learning from what's going on around you. And I did. And I think that you took that attitude pretty much to everything you've done all throughout your career. What is one of your favorite roles of all time that you've had?
Well, I guess, I mean, my first comedy really was Animal House. I mean, I had not really done anything. I'd gotten to a point in my career where I was kind of playing the same kind of nice guy characters over and over again, and I was, in my mid-20s, and it was like, they're boring characters, so I started taking improv classes here we formed a company called the Groundlings here in Los Angeles, um, and I was learning a whole new technique about acting, and to trust with whatever happened, like you in the cooking show, go with it. And then in Animal House, there was a moment where I was seducing the dean's wife in my frat room. And I was hanging up her. I was being suave, and I'm in a toga with a tie on. It's silly. And I went to hang up her coat, and the hanger missed and fell on the floor. And I just went with it. And then I threw some ice cubes in a drink in a glass for her to make a drink, and they bounced out. And I just went with it. And I could just sort of hear Lucy going, "Use that, go with it. It's funny." And so, not unlike your cooking show, you just go with it. What the heck? I mean, there are no mistakes in improv, and there are no mistakes in life. You got to go along with it all.
And improv is so great. When I started my speaking career, I completely went I said no to Toastmasters. They scared the crap out of me the very first day because I was like afraid of public speaking. So I went to improv, and it was that what you just said. There are no mistakes. Just roll with it, baby. And also, yes, and like instead of me trying to be so completely out of the box different, yes, and I'm complimenting whatever it is you're doing, right?
Yes, yes, yes. You say yes, you embrace it, and go with it. And that's a great lesson of life too. Belushi taught me that, and when we worked together on Animal House, and it's it's just that kind of spirit. And I saw that in my mother, my grandmother too. They never everybody gets knocked down, but it's how you get back up that counts.
Oh yeah, I mean, in everything. Uh, what are what is like the future for you? Are you still acting?
I'm doing a show, and fortunately, it's been on for 6 seasons called Virgin River. It's on Netflix, and it's quite a popular show. And we're going back in March to Vancouver to shoot another or seventh season. And it's such a treat for me. I'm again playing a doctor, and it's with a wonderful cast, Alexandra Breckenridge and Martin Henderson and Annette O'Toole, who I've worked with many, many times. And so I still get to do the thing I love the most, and which is make believe and pretend every day.
Well, I think in a way, if you can do that in your life, you're dreaming a little bit, right? And it makes life just go by so much better. What would you tell young actors and actresses today that are, just starting out as advice for their careers?
What would I say? Just be positive. As Lucy said to me, always rehearse with your props, and she said to me, if you want to be a star, act like a star. And I think what she meant by that is that it is tough. It's a tough business. Don't let it get you down. Just keep banging away. And there's many phases of a career. So and you need to have the people around you to support you and believe in you, your agents, your managers, and believe in yourself, it's gonna be tough, but if you really love it, stick with it. If you don't love it, if you don't love that feeling of losing out on 9 out of 10 parts and not getting the audition, then don't do it, because it'll break your heart, and you won't have the fortitude to stick with it. So it takes a certain kind of tenacity to keep getting people saying no to you, and then you go, okay, and then I'm going to go back and audition for this, because out of every audition you learn something. And as long as you're learning, don't make the same mistake twice.
Determination is the word, and tenacity, like tenacious. You
Yes.
have to be tenacious in
Yes.
what you really want to do in your heart. Does it still thrill you? Do you still get the thrill that, when you're doing a role?
Oh yeah, I mean it's nothing is more scary than opening night in a play. The first time they roll the camera on a character when you're doing it and you haven't. About 5 years ago I played Ronald Reagan in a television movie, and um, it was like, of course, it's like, I don't know, what are the other people going to think of what I'm doing? Is it going to be, that's not Reagan, that's too Reagan, or there's always there's always that nervousness, but your craft is not to focus on how scared you are. It's to focus on your craft, the part, and making it as real for that moment as you can, so everybody's, actors are always scared. Even when I worked with Lucy, on one of her TV episodes, when I made an entrance to a scene, and she forgot her line, and I could just tell that she was flustered. Everybody gets flustered. It's okay. And if it happened to her, I thought, geez, I should just relax.
Oh my God. It has been so great having you on the show. Say the book again for everybody so they
It's
know where they can get this book.
Yes, support your local bookstore. It's called Damn Glad to Meet You: My 7 Decades in the Hollywood Trenches. And there's a lot of stories, a lot of backstage stuff, and a lot of just insight into the things that I've learned, in my career. And I think that they apply to everybody in any career path that they choose, and young actors and directors and writers too.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for coming on. And you are just charming. I've enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.